Hello, everybody. So this is a little update from MITI and new things happening. For example, I've been talking in terms of pathematics and mathematics on XApp, Instagram, WhatsApp. So it's done on Instagram. It's also going to Facebook because they're related. And LinkedIn, I haven't yet begun to type about it because I need to do some updates on LinkedIn. But these are the media that I'm largely posting content. Also learn.dynamicsgenesis.com. I'm updating content. But why am I saying this? Is because I've been talking about regularly updating Mighty Conscience. And I also have mentioned on social media that I've arrived at the math of faith. And then over time, then I discovered we have WHO's global list of diseases because we have pathologies, which means it's like path, way, the way of doing things, and logi, the logic of how to do things. Pathology. But we tend to call pathology as disease. That's also because we have been functioning hitherto in terms of pathematics. Haven't you heard Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit? That's because, and the Father is regarded as sacred, more revered, the Muslim community, Christian, maybe the veiled mother. And so there's the black thought lines and the white thought lines. So one regard one, but the Christians still revere Christ or Jesus, which is a male, son of God. Yeah. So there is this Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So there's a son idea. And then there's this idea that humans are sinners, which is there in the Muslim community, which is there in the Christian community. I don't know many. I mean, I don't know many which other communities think this. But let's just say largely in terms of, I tend to think the Muslim as black, Christians as white, and Indian or other than these two as colorful. Yeah. So that's like the Eastern kind of thinking. Um, in that sense, you may be having a question of which is Eastern, Southern. Let's just say the Indian as Southern, Eastern, I don't know, Greek and those kinds of people. Maybe I need to get my direction on how we see things because, okay, let's just say black, white, and colorful. Yeah. Religions, I tend to see them as black, white, or colorful. And different countries have black, white, or colorful. And there has been the thought line that humans are sinners. And that's because, and we have WHO's global list of diseases. We also refer to the Sri Chakra, yeah, for sustainably improving health, wealth, and wisdom. Over time, I found, more recent, I was thinking I'm functioning from a different way of thinking than other people are. And I couldn't quite figure, I mean, haven't looked inquiring into until as you're doing the right thing shows up. As you walk, the path appears. Pathology. I arrived at how to name this. Pathology, I tend to call it as the sick economy because we have WHO's global list of diseases. And I discovered that's because we've been functioning from pathematics. The way of doing things, pathology, the logic of doing things from certain pathways. Certain pathways have been discovered, and then there are best practices based on this is done, this is not done. Pathology, the logic of pathways. And then it's like channels. When there's water flowing through a channel, there is certain ways by which they flow. Nervous system, they flow through when there is information going through certain nervous connections. Then there is a nerve sheath that forms per when there's, it's like electric circuitry. Information is ongoing through one set of channels, and then you kind of insulate it. Yeah. So this is the set pathway. So we tend to think in certain ways and not able to see other than that. So there is a right way to do things when we look at different geographies. There are the Muslim community is thought lines is there in certain parts of the geography of Earth. The Christian thought lines are there in certain parts of certain parts of Earth, and the colorful thought lines are there in certain parts of Earth. Yeah, and if you look at it across time, one community, one color has maybe calling the other as pagan, maybe, or other than that, like you're wrong, we are right, and then they would go into clashes. So over time, we have United Nations and several such bodies, which then says, okay, peace, 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 peace. You're not able to see different perspectives. And then there is more nonviolent communication. You can talk across a table rather than pull out your swords. Yeah, and then go to war, because that has been the case too. That's not quite working as well. We need to talk. We may be saying the same things, 6 and 9 issues. So somebody discovered you're saying the same thing, but from different perspectives. And then talking across tables than fighting it out on the battleground. So a little more common sense, a little more, you study the patterns, and then you discover, things are not how they, you immediately, you just see something, and then you react to it. That's not quite working. It creates sparks. Yeah, that's not quite working. Two, you discover there are ways to do things. And then if something is not found and you're seeing a problem first, examine the premises, examine the details. There would be another way to solve things than catch each other's throat. So over time, we have communication across the table. And there also came the round table, and then we have now U table. We have meetings, business meetings around a U table. Yeah. Or a formation like that. There's somebody sitting at the head table, and then there's people sitting in a U formation. One side is open for a projector for everybody to look at. It's like a theater. So that has formed. Yeah. So pathways of how to do things, and then there is still issues to be solved. There are problems, and you say, oh, life is full of problems, like mathematics. We don't see how, like mathematics, every problem has a solution. Instead, when we see problems, we go into, oh, problem, oh my goodness, we could, life is full of problems, because we function from pathematics. It took some while for me to figure this out, and a lot of resources and a lot of things that went into discovering pathology and how we look at language, and several such things. So this is an update. I have made another video as I've been discovering many things. I'll put a link to that video in the description of this video. And over time, we discovered, I've been looking at what's missing, the presence of which will make a difference in being human, humane, alive, in love, in, married, and in such a way that, you can be married to the same person forever and never, never. And with the same group of people that you're alive with, like forever and ever and ever. If you have a difficulty with any of this, then well, that difficulty may be one of the reasons why you seek liberation from life. And then how to go beyond that, or rather why you have diseases, WHO's global list of diseases, because of how to do things. Yeah, this is the prescriptions of life. And this is how you do things, because traditionally it's been discovered that when you do things like this, you're more likely to be healthy, wealthy, wise. Like probabilities, permutations, combinations, probabilities, and then you have predictions. If you do this, then these things shows up. If you don't do this, these things shows up. So if this, then that, cause and effect, and we have different kinds of sanity. How sane is your logic depends on, you still call it as do the math, do the math. You have a business, you got to do the math and then arrive at that what then works. And then there's still trial and error. Like, for example, medicine. You give this pill, it has been found over several clinical trials that this works. And these are all the variations. And there could be other than that. And then you say, okay, there could be some side effects, but then you'll study who's having the side effect and why are they having the side effect, so that the information is then updated, so that the next version of the drug comes with accounting for this works, this is also a variable, and then when you do this, this solves for the problem for them also. That's how you arrive at a better version of a drug. And then there are still side effects, maybe, or I mean, so again, when they study that, when they see that for a group of people, they arrive at a solution that why the problem is there, arrive at a solution, and then updated version, and then there's again marketing, yeah, saying that this was a concern, this is addressed. As information is getting updated, bits of information, like coding, you're making a software and you find a bug. It may be a comma, a full stop, a word, a letter. You discover that that has been causing the problem for why when you click the button, it goes a little slow, or when you click that something else is happening, and then you complain about it. So behind the scenes, somebody is looking at the whole internet, the whole computer, how that functions is by several codes. And when you discover a bug, you go and discover what has been causing that when you click the button, this should happen, instead something else is happening. Earlier, there used to be witches. They cast spells. If you watch Harry Potter, they have to practice casting spells in such a way that when they say something, something happens. You have passwords. If you don't enter the right password, what you expect to happen does not happen. Now we have security lock keys, yeah, biometrics, by which when the information matches inside the system and what you're entering matches, then the door opens. Similarly, for software codes, okay, there needs to be matching content. If you do this, then that happens. Predictions, when you do this, most often this happens. So you have different, for example, cybersecurity, or you have different banking apps, or different softwares based on, you improve the intelligence, what we call as artificial intelligence. The logic of how to do things improves as it is more discovered that when you do this most often, then this is possible. So we have something called as a computer. When we are working with a computer, there is a screen, there is a keyboard, there's a mouse. And when you do different things, so much things is possible. For example, we have software developers, we have construction industry, we have medicine, we have so many industries, artists, all working on one screen that you can see, keyboard, mouse, and what's possible from there. A lot of things have become possible over time. So what I'm saying is, when the logic has been discovered of when you do this, this happens, your prediction model, if this happens and this happens, that changes. To over time, we also have people making rockets, wanting to go to Mars or Moon. They were able to go to Moon. Now, for some reason, that's not happening because something has changed. Change is a constant in life. Now, what has changed since the last time to now? We have been different logic. There has been said to be signs of life on Mars and Venus. And now they discover it is not habitable because something changed in the composition. You say climate change, global warming, many, many things, which means something has changed. And so something was not possible, which was possible earlier. Civilizations, archaeologists, they go through different layers of Earth, yeah? And they say each layer was a civilization earlier. And they see signs of it, okay? Now, what am I saying here is, when something better is discovered, let's just call human beings, different civilizations, There used to be warring civilizations. Now we have people having AI battles. I don't know. Yeah. This is better, people. This is better market. Yeah. Buy from me. Buy from me. My stuff is good. Yeah. So we have competition, not going at each other's throats. There are peacemakers. Yeah. Russia, Ukraine, we are at different stages of peacemaking. But the point is, we have more peace than warring tribes. As you discover the logic, you're seeing this matter through this perspective, this matter through this. When we see differently, religious clashes, for example, would not happen because of mathematics. What has not been able to be arrived at is what I'm calling as mathematics. Now, this may seem like obvious. We've been doing mathematics, but we didn't know that we are doing pathematics. Now, why is this different? Just naming what we've been calling as mathematics as pathematics, you discover there is disease in the logic. Suboptimal logics give rise to disease pathways. You want something to happen, something else is happening. The code, the logic. If this and that code, something is wrong. If there's a thorn in that logic, it pokes. Like Jesus' crown, poke, thorny crown, that got him on the cross. Yeah? So he was functioning from a certain logic, and there was further thought required. But there's a sign of Jesus on the cross for people to look at and then go, oh, I wonder what you are. Then you discover, oh, blood, thorns, yeah, cross. And then what did you do? What's your story? And then you discover, don't do that. Or do that. Don't do that. So we have BC, AC, before Christ, after Christ. So thought lines from there. That's also civilization. What to do, what not to do. Yeah, you kind of learn from there. Over time, MITI, my enterprise, has been studying these different patterns. And that's how I discovered that the economy as we know it has been functioning by mathematics. And there is other than that, by which MITI, my enterprise, has been functioning, by which I was able to, what I call as the Shri Gandha. Now we have the Shri Chakra, and people have been talking in terms of consciousness, but haven't been able to think in terms of conscience. We have the 7 cardinal sins and the thought lines that humans are sinners. Yeah. So what is over the course of several years, since when meristem intelligence, which may be a mouthful if you don't understand the word meristem, or have a little, what really is intelligence, while you don't have reason to think about, or that's not your cup of tea. So maybe a mouthful. So over time I came with MITI, MITI. It's small. Yeah, you can at least, whether or not it makes sense, it's another word, but it's not a mouthful. Yeah. So since inception of meristem intelligence, MITI, which over time now is called MITI because it's easier to use, we discovered that our relationship with being human itself is suboptimal. We have been regarding ourselves as sinners. And then I had to look at why have we been thinking that way. And then over time, I discovered 7 cardinal sins, unable to go beyond the challenges from that. And then we have the Sikh economy. Over time, the ecologic, the nomenclature, clashes between how we see things, perspectives, several work. Yeah. Then I discovered there's something called healing the fabric of time space, which is something I discovered that I've been doing in the course of facilitating health clinically. Over time, I came with movementless yoga, course correction counseling, and it's better to do this than that. So we came to pathematics, pathologics, which part to better do than others, which is more beneficial. So course correction, I tend to call it as course correction counseling. And then there is, I have been calling it as community harmonizing activities. Over time, I discovered that it is market improvement activities. As you connect the dots, and then you discover our businesses are functioning by certain practices which maintain disease because we don't know pathematics versus mathematics. Yeah, we have problems and then we see problems as a problem. And then There are thought lines that if you don't see problems as problems, something else becomes possible. But how to do that, what it takes to do that, it requires further thought lines, further details. For example, looking at mathematics differently. Sacred geometry also talks mathematics. We talk in terms of arithmetic, algebra, geometry. We may not be knowing that mathematics itself is a different way of calculation. So it's actually 4. Arithmetics, it's more like truthmetics, integers. Arithmetics, integers is more like integrals or integrity. Yeah, okay, let's just say arithmetics, algebra, which is all our languages. There's like several sets of codes. We just look at them, they're all alphabets. But if you look at that as algebra and geometry, parabola, yeah, and then there is square, and then there's triangle, and then there's rectangle, logic in shapes. Okay, animals look a certain shape, human beings look a certain shape. If you reduce them to just geometrical shapes, they are different geometrical shapes. So according to logic like that. So arithmetic, algebra, geometry, mathematics itself is a different calculation. Mathematics versus pathematics, different outcomes. We have WHO's global list of diseases because we think in terms of pathematics, but don't know mathematics. We have had Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Now this is like the Holy Spirit kind of work. We talk in terms of spirituality. And over time, the spirit has a little more cooled and come to a little more common sense. Or let's just say emotion. People have been talking in terms of emotion. If we say spirit, you drink alcohol, it's a little charged particles. Yeah. It may get you inebriated a little bit. Yeah. But it also inebriated affects your emotions. You either get angry or you're sad or you're doing fearful or many, many things. It affects your emotions. So we see spirit as charged particles. Yeah. Positive, negative. So you either get angry or you get sad and depressed, or it affects your energy. And the motions, the activities you do. Yeah. So like charged particles. The battery has positive, negative. Yeah. So if you relate spirituality, you have the heaven thought lines and the hell thought lines, positive, negative. Spirituality, when you kind of work that out. And what gives rise to disease, pathology, pathology versus health. So spirituality has been being different religions have been working on that. Yeah. So over time, as I looked about at the patterns and then see there are these patterns, and then I discovered pathematics and mathematics. Yeah. And how we look at spirituality. And then from there, you arrive at emotion. E is equal to mc square. The gravitas of the matter, mass. And then there are 2 kinds of light photon and dark photon. People are still searching for the dark photon from what I last heard. So c square is 2 kinds of light and the speed of each kind of light. Einstein's equation. Yeah, Einstein discovered that. And then there is theory of relativity based on gravitas, with accounting for gravity and other than that. So it's like in vacuum. Yeah. How does particles move in vacuum, and then how do they move in with the gravitas? So there is the whole space, and then there is gravity as related with Earth, and then there is Voyager. The different stars, planets, galaxies, they have different gravity. And what happens when a particle is moving around a particle that has different gravity? And so there will be attraction versus not. So how does motion happen? So there are still such research happening about how particles move with different kinds of gravitas. I have been researching R&D with people around. Yeah, it's like macro particles. We have animals, plants, microbes, humans, different kinds of particles. And each have their own composition and gravitas of the matter. Weight, body size, for example, different masses. And when two particles interact with different charges, according to their emotion, with their different spirituality, could have reactions. And through warring tides to now having humanity across boundaries, sitting around a table, nonviolent communication, that's we've come a long way. And we don't know to calculate these dynamics. So I tend to call it as a multiverse. Earth is a multiverse. We speak different languages. We have different arithmetics, how to do the right thing, algebra, geometry, pathematics versus mathematics. So this is an update where we are, where MITI is, what we've been doing. And there's a way of how we discover things, how we do things. So then over time, I call it as internal redistribution of units, because there are these patterns we see, but if you see things a little differently, or we kind of notice that when you continue to see things like this, some other things are not visible to be seen. So then I call it as internal redistribution of units. So then you see things slightly different, and then you see, oh, this is not available earlier. So when perspectives change, what you see, it's like a kaleidoscope. A kaleidoscope is an instrument where you just change the lens that's there inside. When you change that slide, you have PPTs. Yeah, when you change the slide, what you see is different. So earlier there used to be this instrument called a kaleidoscope. I read a book called Kaleidoscope. There they were talking about how the author was talking about how life looks different when the frame from which you're looking at it is different. So the book is called Kaleidoscope. That's where I got this idea. So when this frame of reference changes slightly, what you see then changes. Over time, I discovered there are different models of reality. And from that framework, what is seen is different. So you look at a globe, or a crystal. From one perspective, you see something else. From another perspective, you see something else. It's like the six blind men and the elephant. Well, let's just say they're not blind. They just can't see, if they're looking from here, they just can't see what's from this side. It's like the six and nine. That's just six and nine. But if you look at it as a globe, different people from different parts of the globe are looking at reality from their own perspective. How then do you look at the overall? So we have MITI perspectives. You know, how then do we do that? So it's a logic, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of functioning. There are many things. There are four values, four band values. One is MITH, I tend to call it as myth or myth, medicine intelligence therapy. Yeah. Using no things, no medicines, no crystals, beads, sounds, chanting, visualizations, none of that. Yeah. It's time-based. So people have been looking at what is time. So we have been functioning from time-based perspectives. Yeah. Time, space relativities. So it's more than the theory of everything. It's more like applied science. And we call it as conscience, conglomerate science, because there are many kinds of sciences. And over time, discovering different perspectives. Yeah, particle physics people look at science from one perspective. Quantum physics people look at science from different perspectives. So we have kinesiology, aerodynamics, hydraulics. These are all different sciences, electricity, electronics. And we have different, in science itself, it's like religion. Muslims have the Shia, the Sunni, yeah, different perspectives. And that makes for a nice variety, which means so many people have been doing R&D over so many so many generations of evolution. Yeah, do this, better do this, not do this. Books, for example, people are discussing about how Quran was written then, and they have been updating it over time. Science theories have been updating. When they find something new, they update it. The standard model of particle physics, this is better done. They've heard books, Quran, for example, Bhagavad Gita, there are different textbooks. Adi Shankaracharya, so many textbooks. He reduced to 10 books. Yeah. That's some encryption. Yeah. Code sorting out through stuff and then It's like cleaning your room or the attic. You have to, everything is there to, some things it's more livable, yeah? So that's a lot of work. Now, so I have been looking at different things and then arriving at health. And I discovered mathematics and health. And then we get to look at things from mathematics, and a whole world of difference. So gives every room a meaning. We have a person-centric model of reality. And I discovered people have been grappling with the idea of what is reality and the hard problem of consciousness. Pathematics, consciousness. People have been thinking in terms of consciousness, spirituality, consciousness. Two, we discovered the charged emotions needed a little more balance. But then it's not just about balance. When positive and negative work together, they kind of also precipitate certain compounds. Yeah? Otherwise, they'd have been charged particles and not quite balancing it to neutral, kind of non-reactive material. So that we have humanity across boundaries, sit around a table and not want to go at each other's throats. We have United Nations form over time. Yeah. So the point is, we have been working on spirituality, different differences in opinion, complementary opposites. The hard problem of consciousness has something which we didn't know we had to think about, which is conscience. And MITI, Maritime Intelligence, and suite of thought lines related with that, have been working on conscience, which we didn't know we have to work through, and have perspectives, suite of solutions from these thought lines. While people are working on artificial intelligence, superintelligence, hyperintelligence. Okay, artificial intelligence, hyperintelligence, superintelligence. You didn't know you had to think about maritime intelligence. But we also have human intelligence, natural intelligence, body intelligence, organic intelligence. You didn't know you had to think in terms of maritime intelligence. Like people have been working on bits of information. Over time, we have the computer, internet. Now we have artificial intelligence connecting this and that. We have that. And then I connected bits of information, dots, and then figured out mathematics, maritime intelligence. It's a paradigm of thought. It enlivens life in the multiverse because it actually improves the degree of healing from bringing together complementary opposites, conscience, conglomerate science. Yeah. And when our businesses are functioning from conscience, different conscience, they're proving our intelligence becomes better. And then our solutions more stand the test of time. Or rather, you'll be able to notice time from a perspective, and then you'll be able to work with time, space. It's a different way of living. Yeah. Where the microcosm, macrocosm, we all work together. And it's a nice world. Yeah. The point is, we used to function from the cash market, like barter system. And we came to cash, exchange money, cash. There's this idea of Kubera in the Ashtadigbandhana. There's this idea of Kubera loaning money to Balaji for marrying his daughter, Mahalakshmi. Yeah. So money, cash market, came to debt market. So over several cycles of evolution through ancestry, there is this borrow money to marry, yeah, concept, and then going into debt. So we are all in the debt market. People call it as runanubandhas, that we are indebted, for example, to our ancestors, Pitra Runa, Deva Runa. There are many kinds of runa, debt. And we are basically in the debt market because we are yet to return Kubera's money. Yeah. And so we're all, they tell it as jinnat. Yeah, we're all sinners. But there's also Indian thought lines of Runa. So every now and then there is these ceremonies to repay Pitra Runa or Deva Runa. So particle physics, also many things. And as we are doing the right things, we come to balanced market, where we actually repay the debts, get out of the debt market and come to a balanced market. Yeah. And then we'll be able to then further appreciate values and come to equity market. So Meristem Intelligence MITI offers many ways on how to repay debt. Runanubandhas. We have a lot of relationships, and then there's sometimes this quantum physics, quantum mechanics, on how we are all related, entanglements. We talk in terms of entanglement. I don't think we are talking in terms of detanglement, but MITI, through movementless yoga, has been detangling a lot of the entanglements. We have the idea of Rapunzel on the tower, Mother Gothel, stepmother Gothel, yeah, and Tangled. The movie Tangled is talking about the entanglements. And how to detangle is something that I discovered through movementless yoga, on table therapy work, course correction counseling, community harmonizing activities, over time, how to improve the market. I have, I'm just in different stages of more writing this book that I call as Who's in My Room, which is has a reference from this book called Who's in Your Room, which I discovered as I participated in business networking group, Business Networking International, BNI, is where I discovered there's this book, Who's in Your Room. And then I was thinking, actually, I've been living life from Who's in My Room, and that bounces off this idea. So I thought I'd more consolidate those thought lines. And it also helps solve the hard problem of consciousness from conscience, conglomerate science. So there are these thought lines. And I'm developing this 5-part online course held together by Prakriti and Purusha on learn.dynamicstillnesses.com, because there's a lot of findings. So we have to regularly update. It's more like there is this news picture that I found that a lady coded several books, like a little more taller than her own height, to put a man on moon, yeah, through the Apollo project. And so this is like, so we've been discovering things here. There's lots of patterns. So we had to put it in an orderly manner such that we discovered the logic, man was sent, put to moon. And then there's this idea of Pakistan with the moon and the star behind. And we don't know what we don't know. And they talk about Noor Jahan, yeah, where it's all clear. So there are these thought lines, but we don't really know what it means to land on the moon. Yeah, there's this idea of if you aim for the sun, you'll at least land on the moon. I discovered the sun, moon, different planets are also mentioned in Vastu Shastra. There they're talking about 12 houses and 9 planets. And now I was thinking, interesting. Are they talking about, in living life in the multiverse? And then they're talking about Grihanatha, how the planets affect a human. Yeah, but they talk about in terms of the Sri Chakra, copper plate. We haven't really connected the dots. Yeah, to figure out this whole thing called reality, consciousness. How is microcosm related with macrocosm? There's this idea that dharmasya moolam artha. Then I discovered people are relating to artha as money. Then I discovered artha also means meaning. In the hard problem of consciousness, reality has been a problem. How does phenomena happen? How is it related with meaning? How is meaning affecting all of this? So there are all these several asked questions, but don't know how to figure out the answer. And there are these several kinds of things, yeah? So we're all having answers through mighty perspectives. and it's a healthy economy. So I've been saying pathematics, sick economy versus healthy economy that I've been talking about. There was this to discover, I discovered it as Shrigandha, root parasite, when functioning coordinatively, in a particular manner with a certain logic of thinking. Yeah. Like we can't just say mathologic, we have pathology, path logic. There is also like pa, father's world. You have pa, ma, pa as father. There's also mother's logic, her story. You have his story, pathologic, pathologic, and her story, mathologic. So mother has not been able to be understood. There's this idea of the model of the brain where male brain functions in a certain way, like boxes. Yeah. And there's a nothing box in the logic of it. And then this person who discovered there's the female brain where everything is connected with everything. And that math hasn't been able to be figured because it is male brain functions by pathematics. Female, apparently, where everything is connected with everything, is called mathematics. So we have this idea of polymaths, but we haven't been able to figure out mathematics itself. Okay, so best of both worlds, pa and ma, and then there is the and me. Yeah, we have music and we have circle of fifths, and we have there's this idea of the Melakarta raga chart with 72 ragas, but only 35 is more popular. Because health went through different challenges, and we've come to, these, when you do this, more like best practices, if you do this, this effect comes. No idea how the other ragas function. And so what is more popular, this gives rise to pleasant feeling, all nice. It's still working. So we'll work with what is working. We can earn money. Things are still working. It's still better. So over time, we come to 35. At the age of 35, I discovered that I had ground nothing. And then it was like there's this movie Epic where there's this queen of the forest selects a pod, yeah, to be the next queen. Training, grooming. So there is a sense of, okay, she's just 35. Yeah, we have time. Fine. This is before I watched the movie Epic. I was good, this is what happened. Yeah. So certain ways of functioning or being, I suppose. So how does all these movies connect? There's Lord of the Rings, Pirates of the Caribbean, there's this movie Epic, and then there is Alice in Wonderland. Name the songs, movies, creatives, Mahabharata, Ramayana, what have you. Put them all together. I discovered it's happening in a person. Yeah? If there is no fight happening between them, that's happy family. You're more having a little help. Yeah, versus who all entangled. Yeah, let's just say Leo Tolstoy said, all happy families are the same. All unhappy families are unhappy in their own ways. And then I discovered a family is a meaning that has relevance only in a person. Otherwise, we are like oddballs under a roof. If you have the idea of a family, that's in the heart, like heart, H-E-R-T. Mrs. Doubtfire, Avvai Shanmugi is an Indian translation of Indian version of that movie. Yeah. If you watch that, in Mrs. Doubtfire, there is a sentence that there are all kinds of families. Yeah. And they all they function by their own. I wrote a blog post about it. I will put that link to it in the video description. But the idea basically is there are all kinds of families, but when you have the family, the idea of family in your heart, that's where the family is. You hold the family together by you improving the meanings of how are these all related. They may be different kinds of behaviors, but the family is in the heart. It's in our body. Our body is like several microbes holding hands. Yeah. The mitochondria is from a certain microbe whose DNA then became part of the human body composition during evolution, during evolutionary cycles. So the whole body is like several microbes holding hands because there are at least 12 strands of DNA from different microbes, including our brain was a virus who was incorporated into the whole organic system. And now we have viral thought lines. Thoughts move only through certain thought lines. And then when that is happening regularly, then there's a nerve sheath that's like a electric circuitry, the house. You have insulation. If that insulation is removed, it goes zzz. Yeah. So sanity is more like you figure things out. Einstein's brain is said to have been used only 10%. He may have been thinking in a particular ways that who was studying Einstein's brain discovered only 10% because he had channelized his thought lines to some sort of a 10%, I suppose. I don't know. Otherwise, connections, more like when you are thinking in particular ways, things get better. You can process information in such a way that you're like a supercomputer, like a workstation, space station, what have you. It's a station which function. You have a railway station, bus station. They kind of make sense. So I'm like kind of health station, I suppose. Yeah, because I think in a particular way. And there are suite of solutions. And then there are lifestyle, practices by how I maintain different kinds of information in a way that I'm healthy and continuing to facilitate health, and then course correction and community harmonizing activities. And how do we maintain being healthy, wealthy, wise, healthier, wealthier, wiser? So we're going beyond the debt market to balanced market and then equity market values. Yeah. So that's an update on what's been happening in MITI end. Yeah. So thank you so much for your kind interest. I hope this has been of value to you. Good day. Hopefully you will talk to me anytime soon because that's more like the indication that what I'm speaking has communicated across through to your room. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm speaking from my room. Yeah. But do let me know if this message has gotten communicated to your room where you're sitting. And then we'll have more humanity across boundaries. We have the screen, screen, keyboard, mouse formed over time. We can speak across boundaries. We're all in the same planet Earth. Lucky. Yeah. And we have similar technologies by which to communicate. So while people are trying to send messages to, there's been a receiver message to different star cluster, we all have our own constellation of thinking, our own thought lines, constellation of thoughts. But we have certain technologies which is common across people around the globe. Yeah, luckily we came up with computer internet. So do let me know. We're all on the same planet. And then we will have more human communications. And we'll be able to solve problems better. We have a sick economy. We have WHO's global list of diseases. And I have a different way of thinking things. Yeah. We get to a better place. Yeah. Thank you so much for your interest. Thank you so much for your support, encouragement in however manner. Yeah, that's been possible. I'll get it out. Okay, we're getting all emotional. Spirituality and all that. Okay, so talk to you later. Bye. Good day.